Hello folks, welcome to the Uni-hosted YouTube channel. My name is Fernando, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can set up a UniFi network with a UniFi gateway. With me, I have the UniFi Cloud Gateway Ultra, really budget-friendly gateway from UniFi, and we will go through the basic setup. We will set up also an access point with a Wi-Fi network, and I will show you a few of the things that you can do with this really cheap gateway from UniFi. So if you are ready now, let's begin. All right, folks, let's begin with the first part of setting up this cloud gateway. And this is connecting the power to our UniFi cloud gateway. Now, in the box, you will have all these items, and one is the power adapter, and the other one is the Ethernet cable. So first thing that you need to do is to connect the power adapter to the back of the gateway and connect the adapter to the wall. And then we have the Ethernet cable. This one, you will need to connect the cable from the one port of your UniFi gateway to the modem router of your internet company, to any of the LAN ports. So I already did this, and also you will need to connect one cable from the LAN port of your gateway, and the cable needs to go to the Ethernet port of your computer or laptop. So I already connected everything, and this came on my browser. This is the initial setup, but maybe when you connect everything and you just are working on your computer, you will see a message in your browser popping up. And if you see this address UniFi, it will say that your gateway is booting. Now, after the initial boot finishes, that depending on the gateway, it might take from 1 minute to 5 minutes. You will see this window. And here is where we begin with everything. So let's name our console. I'm going to set up or just leave this on the default. And we also have the option to restore from backup. And this is if you restore to default because maybe you did something with your gateway. This is how you can restore the backup. You can also do it inside the console. So if you want to restore not here and do it on the console, you can do it from the menu. Now let's leave the default name. And now something very important, create the UI account. Now I'm not going to use a UI account right now, just going to use a local admin user, but I really recommend that you create a UI account and that you set up MFA with the UI account, because the user that you are going to use to access the gateway will be your UI account, and you can protect that user with MFA using the MFA that is available on the UniFi system. If you are going to use a local user, you cannot use the MFA. You need to set up the MFA with the UI account and with the sync that you can use between your gateway or maybe access point or controller and the UI system. Okay, so really recommend that you create a UI account, enable MFA, and when you are setting up your gateway, go ahead and sync your UI account with the gateway. Now I'm going to go over here to preset without a UI account. Here are all the benefits that I'm missing because I'm going to use a local account. So this is really important that you review this, and that's why I really recommend that you set up the UI account and sync it with the gateway that you're setting up. Even if it's not a gateway and you're just setting up a controller, a software controller on your computer, do it, all right? Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to go here and continue anyway. Now let me create a password for my local user, and let me see if this works. UniFi. There we go. Just something really simple. Please remember this for me. I'm going to forget it. Now let's go to next. Now the gateway will do a speed test. We'll check my internet connection, my ISP. You can see here, this is my ISP. Yes, I am from Argentina. So it's going to do like any speed test like with fast.com. This way, UniFi will check the speeds that you have, and if there is any issue, this really helps the gateway to check the connection the speeds. So let's wait until this finishes. There we go, perfect. Okay, wonderful. So this is for testing, like I mentioned. Now let me go to next. And now it's going to set up the UniFi OS. We just need to wait for a minute until this finishes. Now, in the meantime, I want to show you something. If you didn't purchase this gateway yet, the Gateway Ultra, I would like you to go into the store of UniFi and to check the technical specifications. Like I mentioned in the intro, yes, this is a very budget-friendly gateway with really good features like IDS or IPS. Now, there's a few things that are missing from this gateway. And if you want to see all these specifications, you can go here to technical specifications. But I think the best is to go to the compare tab in the store. That way you can compare with the other two cloud gateways that are available. And for example, this gateway that I'm setting up, that I have with me, the Ultra, doesn't have the other applications that are available for the UniFi suite. I only have the network application. So if you're planning, for example, to set up UniFi cameras, you will need to get another gateway. So this is really important. If you are still thinking about which gateway you need, which one is the one that you are going to purchase, please check this first, so you don't you don't miss any of the features that maybe you want to set up with your gateway or in the future, like cameras or doorbells or things like that. So if we go to the bottom, we will see other settings. Most of the security settings are available for all the cloud gateways. The most important ones, I think, are IDS, IPS, things like application aware layer 7 firewall. This is a little bit better than just checking packets with IPs or ports, things like that. So the firewall itself will check all the traffic and identify the traffic with applications, not just with IPs or ports. So then we also have the feature of zone-based firewall. This is a new way of managing the firewall and the firewall rules, and this comes with the network version of UniFi, the version 9. Really brand new. This is started on 2025. So let's go a little bit down. We have a lot of options for VPNs, and we also have the license-free SD1, but a lot of options are covered for the VPNs if you want to do server or if you want to do client VPNs. And also we have other things like multi-WAN, load balancing, or failover, multicast DNS. Well, a lot of things that are covered by these cloud gateways. Now, the main differences, I think, are the UniFi applications and what you can do in terms of, for example, cameras, MBRs. You see here that the gateway doesn't have a slot for an MBR storage, which basically with the other two, you can use SSDs and up to 2 terabytes. So this is one of the main reasons. That's why we don't have the Protect application, which is the one that works to set up cameras, UniFi cameras. If you want to set up another MBR with other cameras, of course, feel free to do it. But I think the best is just to use everything UniFi if you're setting up a UniFi network. All right, let's go back to the gateway, and it seems that the setup is complete. That is wonderful. Now let's go to our dashboard, and we have the regular connection is not private because, well, the certificate of the firewall is self-signed. Sorry. So let's go and proceed. We are not going to get in any trouble. And now let's go and authenticate. Now, if you have configured the UI account, probably you will need to log in with your UI account and do the MFA. Just add a local user over here. And what do we have over here? I see new device detected, U6 Plus. Oh yeah, I forgot about it. I connected a U6 Plus access point. It's on the default state and it's connected to one of the LAN ports of my UniFi Cloud Gateway Ultra. So it's just telling us, hey, go ahead and adopt this device. Let's wait. I want to do something first. Now, remember that I mentioned that the network application that has the new firewall zone-based settings, it's on the version 9. And I see that I have the version 8. So let's go and change that. And now if we go over here, it will tell us that the settings to manage the applications have changed or moved to the to the control plane. So we need to go there. And this is the control plane. Basically, it's found on the settings where you set up Wi-Fi, network, internet, all the other settings. So let's go to the control plane. Now you can see that the firmware of my gateway, it's up to date. If it's not up to date on your gateway, please update the firmware. This is really important before you start doing anything with networks, Wi-Fi, any configuration. Please update the firmware first. Like everything, it will take a few minutes, might take 10 minutes. So take your time, update the firmware, and then start doing all the configurations that you want to do. And we can see here I have the network application, and the version is the 8.6.9, funny number. And let's update this to the version 9. Perfect. Now I'm going to click there, and I'm going to click proceed. Now we can see that the update is queued. Now let's wait a little bit until this finishes. I think it's not going to take that much, but just let's wait. All right, folks, we have the version 9 now of the network application. Wonderful. Now let's do something else. Now, after you do the update here in the application, you need to go to security, and you also need to do the upgrade of the security settings. So I'm going to click here on click to upgrade, and then we are going to upgrade here. And now we have the new method or the new feature of the zone-based firewall and all the policies and rules listed here. Now, I think this deserves another video. I'm just going to show you something over here that we are going to use for the guest network that I will create. So now let's go back into other setting. Let me check something on the control plane. Wonderful. Everything looks fine here. Okay, now let's begin by creating our networks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 networks. We'll do just a basic setup. This is something that you can replicate for your home network, and I'm going to do a mainland, and I'm also going to set up a guest network. So let's begin with our default network over here. So If we click there on the name of the network, we can now get into the settings. Let's change the name. Let's use main LAN, or you can just use something like LAN. And now we can see this zone over here. I will just leave this in on internal, but you can change this if it's other kind of network. You can see hotspot and DMC are listed here. On the zone-based firewall part, you can also create other zones, and probably you will see them here. But I'm just going to use the internal zone. Now I will change a few settings over here, and for that I need to uncheck the auto scale network, and I also need to switch this to manual. Perfect. Now let's begin by changing first the gateway IP and the subnet. Now, if you want, you can stay with this scheme, this IP scheme, but something that I recommend is to change this. This is a Class C network. This is the type of network that you see in all of the home routers, that probably the one that you have with your ISP provider. You have this subnet or this IP scheme. I think we should change that, and I'm going to change it, and I really recommend that you change this from the default to something else. We can use something like a Class A network and change the IP scheme to be a Class A network. For the purpose of this video, again, it's going to be just a home network, and the only thing that I'm going to do is I will stay on a Class C network, but I'm going to change the third octet of the subnet to be 20. Now, if you want to use something like Class A network, we can do something, for example, like this, and then we will be on that type of that type of network. Sorry, Class A network will give you more scalability and among other things, but that's more if you're setting up things like an enterprise network. So let me just go here and use this IP. All right, perfect. The net mask, I'm going to say on the 24 net mask. I don't need more IPs than that, but if you want to play with this, you can change the net mask here. And now we can see this is the gateway IP, the broadcast IP, all the IPs available, and the range. So what I'm going to change here, this is going to be my main network. So I'm not going to use this option. This option is the one that I will use for my guest network, which basically isolates the network from the other networks that you have. I will show you how it works later. We have the content filter setting. You can use this feature of work. Basically, this blocks a few things over here. And then you can also use family, which is a little bit more, it will block more things, basically. We have settings for the multicast DNS, and then we have the DHCP settings. Now, something that I recommend change here. So this is the start IP of our DHCP server. For sure, I will have a few devices that I will use static IPs, maybe like a server, maybe like a printer, something like that. So what I will do is to, instead of using this starting IP, I will change it to 50. And then I will also do the change on the other end. And instead of leaving this on the 254, let's use 200. Okay, so now that leaves us with a lot of usable IPs. You see the amount over here, and also give us a really big range to use with static IPs. And let me go over here. We have more options here that you can set up. You can set up the domain name if you want, in case you have a domain. NTP server, network pool, this is for PXE. Option 43 is to inform if you have multiple access points, UniFi access points. They communicate with the controller with broadcast, but when you're setting other networks and if you are having some issues with adoption of devices, this is an option that you can use for the adoption of devices of UniFi access point to the controller. Okay, I'm not going to use any of those settings, so I'll just leave this like this. I have the name, I have everything I need. Wonderful. I'm going to apply the changes. Okay, perfect. Now, something that will happen is, of course, the IP address that I had before is on this subnet over here, so I will need to change this. And how I can do this is I just need to open CMD. Now, we will do this, IP config, and you can see now I have two Ethernet adapters. This is for my other router, and this is for the old subnet that it was set up, or the default subnet that was set up on this gateway. What I'm going to do is the same command, but in this case, I will release, and then I will type renew so I can get a new IP on the new subnet or network that we configured for the UniFi. And now you see that I have a new IP. This is for the DHCP server. Wonderful. You can see in the back that the console is offline, and that's because the IP address that it's trying to use to connect is the old one. Now let's go ahead and type the new one. All right, we see the self-sign error again. Let's proceed and let's authenticate. All right, we are now again on the dashboard of our controller. This is the built-in controller of this access point. Perfect. Now let's create another network. Okay. Now before I create this network, Actually, let me create a network and then I will show you the setting that I want to show you. So like I mentioned before, we are going to create a guest network. So I'm going to name it guest. I will leave this in the internal zone. By default, when you create networks on UniFi and on a UniFi gateway, they will communicate with each other, and you need to establish rules. So I will leave this on the internal zone, but we are going to use one of the settings that show you before. So let me do the same thing like I did before. Let me uncheck this so I can modify a few things of my network. So instead of using 20, I'm going to modify the third octet like I did with the other network, and I'm going to use 30. Network mask will be the same, 24. We will have a lot of IPs here. This is going to be for my guest network. I'm not going to have a lot of people in my house at the same time, so I think that's more than enough. And now we can use another billion ID, or we need to set up the billion ID here. Let's use 30, so it matches the third octet that I'm using for my network. Now, this is the feature that I'm going to use for to restrict the access of this guest network to the other networks. So, or to the only other network that I have, which is the main network. So I'm going to click here on isolate network. As you can see here, it will create rules on the UniFi automatically. So the devices connected on this network don't have access to the other networks. I want to allow internet access. And again, you can modify all the content filtering, all the other things. For this case, I'm not going to modify the DHCP server. I'm not going to set up any static IPs. And I will leave these service features also on the default. So let me click here on add. Wonderful. Now, something that I want to show you, if we go to security, now here is where we have all the policies and then use some base policies. Now, so how you can, you have the matrix here. This is where how you can check what communicates to network, what is restricted, what is allowed. So what I want to show you is, if you see on the zones, we have the internal zone, and I have my two networks over there. Now, something that we set up is, hey, I don't want anyone on the guest network to connect to the LAN, or we just said isolate that network and just allow internet access. How we can check which policies the setting that we enable, which policies it created. So what we can do is, over here you have the matrix, and I will create another video so I can explain you this further. I just want to show you this. This deserves another video, but let's go into internal over here. Okay, and let's go into the internal. You have the internal and external policies. So I'm going to click here. Now you can see that there is an action. This is the firewall rule that was created by the setting that I enabled there, the isolate network. So what you can see is that it will block. All right, this is the action. You have the IP version, or IPv4 or IPv6, all the protocols. The source zone will be internal, and you can see the source. So this is the subnet of my guest network. So basically, this is what the setting that we enable it creates. It will create the rule automatically, so that network is isolated. All right, wonderful. Enough of that. Now let's go into internet. This is something that you have a lot of settings to configure for your one port, for the internet one settings. So if we click here, this is my only connection. The only one I have is my one port. You can see these are the speeds that the speed test from the beginning detected, and they were set up over here. Like everything, we can just switch this to manual. I'm not going to modify anything here because my ISP provider doesn't grant me any public IP. But if you are able to use a public IP, you can modify this over here. Another thing that I want to mention, and I think it's really important in case you want to use something like port forwarding and you can avoid the double NAT, is to request your ISP provider to set your modem router or their modem router into bridge mode. That will allow you to avoid the double NAT and also to use something like port forwarding. That's something that you need to do with them, not in the UniFi box. All right, perfect. Again, I'm not going to modify anything here, but you see all the settings that you can modify on your one port. So I'm going to click cancel here. And let me go again to the internet because there's something else I want to mention. You can set up one of the LAN ports, which is port number 4, to also be a one port. And with this, you can set up then a failover if you have another ISP, or you can also use load balancing. I don't have another ISP, but this is how, if you have one, this is how you will configure this. So I'll just leave this on disable. And now let's go to the fun part of Wi-Fi. So like we saw before, I connected an access point into the gateway, and I'm going to go into UniFi devices and adopt the access point. Now let's click here. After the changes that you do on the network part, you may need to restart the access point, like just I did, for example, with the ipconfig command, so it gets a new IP. It seems that it was done automatically by the access point, but you might need to do a reboot. So it gets the new IP on the new network. So let's just wait until the device is adopted. All right, so we have the access points adapted to our network. And now let's set up some Wi-Fi networks. Let's go to settings and we have the Wi-Fi tab over here. All right, I'm going to set up a Wi-Fi network for my main LAN. You can see here on the network, it says LAN. So it will be for my LAN network. I'm going to set up a really simple password. We have a video with the specifics of all the features and settings that you have here on the advanced tab. So I really encourage you to check that video so you can modify the Wi-Fi setup according to what you need. So I will just leave the defaults over here, but I really recommend you to check that video. Now let me go into add Wi-Fi network. Perfect. Now we have a Wi-Fi for my main network, and I'm going to create another one for my guest. So I will go there to create new, and let's call it guest. Let's use a simple password, and I'm going to click here on the network. Instead of using LAN, let's use guest. This is the network that has the restrictions, so it doesn't allow traffic from the guest network to the main one. So I'm going to click on add Wi-Fi network. Perfect. You can see now this network is on my LAN, or it's for my LAN, and this Wi-Fi network is using the guest network over there. Perfect. Now let's go to UniFi devices, and you can see both the gateway and the access point. They are modifying a few things, and this is because I did the Wi-Fi setup. Now, in the meantime, I want to show you something else that I think you need to set up on your gateway, even if it's just a basic setup. So if we go to settings and if we go to security, now, instead of looking at the zone-based firewall rules, I'm going to get into the protection part. Now, here we have a lot of settings over here. You can see we also have the content filtering, but you need to modify those in the network settings. Now, you have a lot of things that you can play here. You can activate and see if they help you with your security. You have out blocking, region blocking. Here you can block countries, allow countries if you are just blocking everything. You have encrypted DNS. You can set up even a honeypot with UniFi. So really, really cool features that you can play with and see if they help. Now, what I would like you to activate right away when you're setting up your gateway is the intrusion prevention. Now, you have two things that you can use for this. Now, once you click on activate the intrusion prevention setting, you can use notify or notify and block. Of course, the IDS and IPS. So notify is IDS and IPS is notify and block. So notify, it will check your network for malicious activity, for malicious network activity, and notify you if it finds something. For the notify and block, it will review your network, and instead of just notifying you, it will also act on the suspicious traffic and block the suspicious traffic. Now you can see here is where you can modify what you would like to for the IDS or IPS to check and act on. Now if you click there, you see all the things that are enabled. I recommend you to leave everything enabled, and if you have some issues, then start modifying a few things, or you can also add some exclusions. So this is one of the settings that I really encourage you to use, at least from the initial setup, and then you can also play with the other ones. So I'm just going to leave this on notify and block, and it was already activated, so I just need to leave it there. All right, now let's go back to the UniFi devices, and we can see that all the settings have been applied, all the Wi-Fi settings have been applied to the access point. Now, let me see. What I want to do is I want to do some testing and see if the feature that we use on the guest network to isolate the network that created some firewall rules, I want to see how it works. I want to test how it works, if it really will block the access between that network. Okay, now let me go over here. I have a smartphone that I will use to connect to the guest network that I created. So let me go here. I can see my main network, but I want to connect to the guest. Okay, connecting right now. And it's connected. So if I go here into the client devices, there we go. This is the phone. Amazing. And now I can see that the phone, the IP address of this phone is the one on the subnet of the guest network. Perfect. This is what I wanted. This is my computer and it's on the LAN network. So this is IP address. Let's do some testing. I'm going to do a simple ping test and ICMP test. So from my computer, which is on the LAN network, let's ping that phone 3159. Okay, so what we enabled on the guest network is the feature that creates rules on the firewall zone-based policies to restrict the access from the guest network to the other networks. So the guest network is only going to have internet access. Okay, so the ping didn't work, so that means that the firewall rules are working. But let's do another test, basically. I'm going to go to settings, and let's go back to the settings of the guest network. And now let me uncheck this. So I want to see something. Perfect. Now we uncheck that, and we go into the UniFi devices. I think we need to wait a little bit until the feature is changed. Now, if we go into here, let's do the ping test again. Oh, all right. So now the ping from my computer that is on the LAN network to the guest network is working because I unchecked the isolate network feature. So this was just an example on how that option works if you opt to choose it. Of course, you can play a little bit more with firewall rules. And again, we will create another video to explain all the firewall rules, because that really deserves an entire video only with the firewall settings, so you can modify all the firewall settings, and I can explain all the settings over there. But I really wanted to show you this so you can create a guest network at least and restrict the access and just allow access to the internet. All right, let me minimize this, and of course I'm going to activate that thing again because I really want to restrict the access. So let's go over there and click on isolate network again. Okay, so I think we did all the things that we needed. We created the networks, created the Wi-Fi networks as well for our access point, and also worked a little bit with the security settings that we have available. So right now, I think the only thing that we need to check is if I have internet. So just let me go over here, and I will just open a fast.com test. And this means that I have internet and it's working. So I will close this, and let me do a ping to Cloudflare. Okay, that's working amazing. So this means that our connectivity is working perfect. Okay, let me go to the dashboard, and that's it. Wonderful. Okay, that's it for the configuration then. Well, folks, that's it for today. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any tips, any questions, or any requests for other videos in the UniFi world, just drop them in the comments. Don't forget to turn on the notifications, subscribe to our channel, and hit the like button. My name is Fernando, and I'll see you in the next Uni hosted video. Bye bye.